The most expensive mistake on Marcus Reed's East Texas ranch arrived on 4 legs. He had spent $7,400 on Blackstone 417, a proven registered Angus bull he believed could shape the next generation of Reed Creek cattle. And when the livestock trailer backed toward his pens outside Crockett, Marcus was already holding a halter sized for a 1,650-pound sire. Then the gate swung open. What stepped down the ramp was not Blackstone. It was a cream-colored Charolais cross, young enough to look unfinished beside the mature bull Marcus had studied for months. Marcus stared at the animal, then at the invoice in his hand. The ear tag was wrong. The breed was wrong. The age was wrong. At roughly 19 months and 1,050 pounds, the bull in his pen was hundreds of pounds lighter than the animal he had paid for, and carried none of the registration papers that justified the price. Marcus called the Kansas breeder before the driver pulled away. After several minutes of checking records, the answer came back. The loading crew had pulled a bull from the wrong holding pen. Blackstone 417 was still in Kansas, while this crossbred had been meant for a commercial sale and was worth only a fraction of Marcus's purchase. The company apologized and offered an easy fix. A truck would return, pick up the mistake, and deliver the bull Marcus had ordered. On paper, the problem was solved. Marcus should have been relieved. Instead, he stood at the fence and watched young bull cross the pen once, then again. Something in the way the animal placed his feet made Marcus lower the paperwork. The company saw the wrong bull. Marcus was beginning to wonder if the mistake had brought him something worth looking at. But the real mistake might not have been the bull that arrived. It might have been sending him back too quickly. Over the next 2 days, Marcus stopped looking at the young Charolais cross as a shipping error and started watching him like a cattleman. On paper, there was little to admire. The breeder valued him at roughly $1,100, a commercial animal with no registration, no proven calf crop, and no catalog page full of performance numbers. Marcus had initially seen the same thing. Then he noticed the feet. They were compact, even, and set square beneath him, the kind of feet built to travel wet pasture, hard ground, and long stretches between water and forage without breaking down. Then came the movement. The bull did not drag, paddle, or swing wide. He tracked straight, covered ground easily, and carried his weight without looking heavy. Marcus watched him circle the pen again and again. Finally, he studied the bull's temperament. The animal was alert, but never frantic. He watched Marcus, adjusted when pressure changed, and settled quickly when left alone. Those details mattered more to Marcus than they would have to most buyers, because he had been taught to notice them long before he ever opened a breeding catalog. Still, observation was one thing. Marcus wanted a practical test. He eased the bull toward a narrow working alley beside the pens. A nervous young bull might back up, hit the rails, or try to force his way through. This one stopped. He looked down the alley, shifted his weight, then walked through calmly without touching either side. Marcus said nothing. He simply rested his arms on the top rail and watched the bull disappear into the next pen. That small moment changed the question in his mind. He was no longer asking why the wrong bull had arrived. He was asking whether everyone else had failed to see what was standing right in front of them that day. What Marcus saw in that young bull did not begin in that holding pen. It had been building in his family for more than half a century. His grandfather, Elijah Reed, had spent nearly 20 years working cattle on ranches that belonged to other men before he could afford a place of his own. Elijah never had the money to chase expensive genetics, but he had something just as valuable: thousands of hours watching cattle under real working conditions. He learned which feet held up, which animals moved cleanly across rough pasture, which bulls stayed calm under pressure, and which ones looked impressive for a season but broke down before they could earn their keep. Elijah passed those lessons to Marcus's father, Calvin, and Calvin passed them to Marcus. So when Marcus studied the cream-colored bull, he was not trusting a hunch. He was drawing on 3 generations of cattlemen who had learned to judge durability before a catalog ever put a number beside it. That made the decision waiting for him the next morning far more serious than it looked. Marcus had spent months planning his breeding season around Blackstone 417. He had studied the bull's records, matched him to his cow herd, and paid $7,400 because he wanted proven certainty. Keeping the crossbred meant throwing that entire plan away for an animal with no registration, no calf data, and no guarantee that Marcus was right. Still, when he picked up the phone and called Kansas, his voice was steady. "Don't send the pickup truck." The manager paused, then reminded him that the young bull was only commercial stock, worth about $1,100. Marcus knew exactly what that meant. He told them to keep $1,100 from his original payment and refund the rest. By the time he hung up, the choice was final. Outside, the young bull stood quietly at the fence, unaware that a few minutes on the phone had changed the entire breeding plan for Reed Creek Ranch. Marcus had not chosen a good bull over a bad one. He had chosen proven certainty over unproven potential. And if he was wrong, the mistake would belong entirely to him. No one else did. Marcus had made the decision, but the first real test of it came from someone who knew enough about cattle to understand exactly how risky it was. Wade Turner, Marcus's longtime neighbor and friend, drove over that afternoon after hearing what had happened. Wade had run cattle for more than 30 years, and he was not the kind of man who dismissed an animal just because it lacked papers. Still, when he leaned against the pipe fence and studied the cream-colored young bull, his expression told Marcus everything. "You gave up a proven Angus for this?" he asked. Marcus did not answer right away. Wade looked again at the bull, then back at his friend. "What are you seeing that I'm not?" Marcus nodded toward the pen. "Watch him walk." The bull moved across the dirt with an easy, balanced stride, placing each foot cleanly beneath him. Marcus explained that pedigrees, EPDs, and performance records mattered, but none of them could replace the animal standing in front of you. Wade understood the point, but understanding was not the same as agreeing. To him, Marcus was still trading proven genetics for a possibility. That disagreement mattered because Wade was no fool. If an experienced cattleman hesitated, then Marcus's decision truly was outside the ordinary. As the bull crossed the pen again, Marcus finally gave him a name: Walker. Wade raised an eyebrow. Marcus smiled faintly and repeated something his grandfather Elijah used to say: "A ranch bull has to earn his living on his feet." Wade watched Walker one more time. He still was not convinced. And that was exactly why the next breeding season would matter so much. The doubt around Walker was about to end, because the next few months would reveal whether Marcus had recognized something rare or simply talked himself into an expensive gamble. He was not reckless enough to turn an unproven young bull loose with his entire herd, so he chose 28 mature Angus cross cows with dependable production histories and made them Walker's trial group. From the first week of breeding season, Marcus watched closely. Walker never burned energy chasing cows across the pasture, never ran himself thin, and never turned the herd into chaos. He worked quietly, moved from cow to cow, and held his condition better than Marcus expected from a young bull carrying his first real responsibility. When pregnancy checks came back, 25 of the 28 cows were confirmed bred. It was a strong result. Strong enough to make Wade stop joking about the wrong bull, but Marcus refused to call the decision proven. Getting cows bred was only the first test. The calves would tell the real story. Months later, the first smoky-colored Charolais Angus calf hit the ground. Marcus liked what he saw: solid bone, good width, and a calm disposition. One calf meant nothing. Then came the fifth. Same balanced frame, same strong top, same easy temperament. By the 12th calf, Marcus had started carrying a small notebook in his shirt pocket, writing down birth weights, early growth, and anything that stood out. The numbers were different, but the pattern was not. By the time the 20th calf was on the ground, he no longer believed he was looking at coincidence. The calves were not merely attractive, they were remarkably uniform. Similar frame, similar muscle, similar bone, similar attitude. Even their growth curves began tracking closer together than Marcus was used to seeing from a first calf group. Wade noticed it too. He stood by the gate one evening, counted the calves twice, and finally admitted they looked as if they had been cut from the same pattern. Marcus only nodded. Standing at the edge of the pasture one cool morning, he watched several of them move behind their dams and felt the question change again. He was no longer wondering whether Walker could breed cows. He was wondering whether the young bull was stamping a repeatable set of traits onto every calf he sired. If that was true, then Marcus had not simply found a usable bull. He may have found the kind of consistency commercial cattlemen spend years trying to breed into a herd. And that changed everything. But Walker's calves were about to face a judge Marcus trusted even more than his own eye: the market. Before sale day, Marcus called Dr. Rachel Morgan, a regional beef cattle specialist, because he wanted an outside opinion from someone with no reason to tell him what he hoped to hear. Rachel spent an afternoon at Reed Creek studying Walker, several of the cows, and the calf crop as a group. She checked weights, watched the calves move, compared structure, and paid close attention to how consistently the same traits appeared across different dams. Her conclusion was careful, not dramatic. Walker seemed unusually strong at passing on a useful combination of balance, muscle, soundness, and calm disposition. One good calf could be luck, she explained. A whole group that looked and performed alike was something else. In commercial cattle, that kind of predictability had real value because buyers were not just purchasing pounds. They were purchasing confidence that a pen of calves would grow, feed, and handle in a similar way. Marcus listened, but he knew the final answer would not come from a specialist's notebook. It would come under the lights of the fall sale barn. When he hauled in 24 market-ready smoky calves averaging about 625 pounds, they drew attention before the auctioneer ever called their lot. Two professional buyers walked the fence, studying the group from one end to the other. One finally looked at Marcus and asked, "Same sire?" Marcus answered, "Every one of them." That short exchange meant more to him than any compliment. The buyers had seen the same thing he had been watching all year: uniformity. When the calves entered the ring, the bidding opened strong and kept climbing. Each raise came faster than Marcus expected, and the final price landed clearly above comparable calves sold that day. By the time the checks were calculated, Walker's first calf crop had grossed roughly $45,000 to $48,000. The contrast was almost absurd. Marcus had paid about $1,100 for a young bull the breeder had never intended to send him, and that bull had now produced a calf crop worth more than 40 times his purchase price. But Marcus did not walk away thinking only about the money. The sale had confirmed something far more important. His judgment had survived the only test that truly mattered. Other cattlemen, using their own money, were willing to pay more for what Walker produced. The wrong bull was no longer an interesting gamble. He had become a proven asset. And for the first time, even Wade had no argument left. The evidence was standing in the sale ring. But the final proof of Marcus's decision came years later, when the people who once called Walker a shipping mistake came asking for him back. By then, Walker had become one of the most important animals on Reed Creek Ranch. His calves kept coming uniform and marketable. Marcus retained daughters, while neighboring ranchers began asking what bull was behind those calves. Walker's reputation spread beyond Crockett. Eventually, the Kansas breeder heard what had become of the young bull they had valued at $1,100. They called Marcus, wanting Walker for a cross-breeding program and offering far more than he had paid. Marcus thanked them and said no. Walker had more value where he was, shaping Reed Creek one calf crop at a time. Later, Wade stood beside Marcus at the pasture fence and asked, "How did you see it before the rest of us did?" Marcus looked at Walker and thought about Elijah. His grandfather had spent decades handling cattle he would never own, but every day he watched, compared, remembered, and learned. He could not pass those cattle down. What he passed down was the ability to notice. Marcus never rejected records or performance data. He understood that papers tell you what has already been measured, while experience can sometimes tell you what deserves attention before the numbers exist. Walker had arrived on the wrong trailer with the wrong paperwork. Marcus looked long enough to see that the mistake might be an opportunity. And maybe that was the real lesson of Reed Creek Ranch. Sometimes the advantage is not knowing more than everyone else. It is noticing what everyone else walks past. If you were Marcus, would you have sent Walker back or taken the gamble? Tell us in the comments. And if stories like this are why you love the American countryside, stay with Solace Farm Stories. There is always another farm, another risk, and another story worth discovering.